Hey guys, today's video is going to be a little bit different than you're used to. There's something that I have not told you, something that I really need to talk about, and this is going to be really hard, and I don't want to do this, but I feel like it needs to be said. I just have to tell someone. So, here we go. Nah, I'm just kidding. But I had you going for a sec, didn't I? Based on the title and the introduction, you were probably expecting a certain type of video, right? Hey, it's Chess, and today we're going to be talking about clickbait. How it works, why it works, and why we keep falling for it. We see it in YouTube, online articles, print magazines, even news stories. We all know it exists, we all know it works, and we all know it rarely delivers the juicy secrets it promises. And yet, without fail, we continue to click on these things. Why? Well, I'm glad you asked. See, it all comes down to our brains, which are very heavily conditioned organs that take a lot of work to retrain. So humans are biologically built to survive. Our brains are constantly learning the rewards and failures of our actions, and this helps us survive as we seek out information. So the neurotransmitter dopamine is involved in our motivation to learn about the world. Dopamine is important in how we feel pleasure, or our reward system. For example, we get a hit of dopamine when we get a like on our social media post or listen to really good music. Dopamine sets up a reward system for how we learn about the world. It incentivizes our behavior through yearning rather than liking. What this basically means is that dopamine is not a pleasure molecule in and of itself. Instead, it's a memory molecule, which constantly reminds you that one time something felt really, really good. We need these reminders to keep us moving forward, basically to keep us motivated to continue living. So when it comes down to clickbait, the promise of something shocking creates this itch that can only be scratched by seeking the information out. The thing is, biting onto this hook gives us relief to have scratched that mental itch, but not pleasure from the actual content itself, which is why we never actually feel very satisfied when we consume the clickbait itself. There also exists this experience called the information gap. This essentially means that between the things we know and the things we need to know, there exists this really strong sense of mental deprivation. And yes, these things we need to know often turns out to be what that child star looks like 50 years and 200 pounds later. These clickbait titles create cognitive discomfort, leaving us wondering what happens next. Will I really not believe the top 5 items Shirley Temple couldn't live without? These clickbaits make people curious by presenting something they know a little bit, but not too much about, and then you're caught. We know so-and-so left The Bachelor mid-season for some unknown reason, but this article is going to tell us all the juicy details why. When we obtain this information we deem as missing, our brains can comfortably reduce these feelings of deprivation. All good clickbait creators know the tricks to pique our interest just enough to get us to click. This often means utilizing sadness, anger, inspiration, some sort of big emotional sentiment. We have a physical response when we see words like, "You'll be sickened by," "You'll be absolutely stunned," "These photos will cause you severe anxiety." Our emotions play an extremely powerful role in our decision to click. Another big key to clickbait is the promise of lists. You know the type. Top 5 things, 50 pictures, etc. My favorite quote I found while researching this topic was from a Wired article. It said, "Humans are drawn to lists because we're afraid to die." I'm gonna need that on a t-shirt because I have never heard anything describe me more accurately. Basically, lists help us to grasp the incomprehensible, and they give us an illusion of a sense of order within this total chaos of existence. They downplay the paradox of choice, emphasizing the illusion of certainty. They quantify the story length so we know exactly what to expect, and they organize information specifically, which our brains love. Not to mention, numbers stick out really well in headlines. Now we're gonna get a little scientific here and talk about a little thing called variable ratio. If you took high school psychology, you may vaguely remember this term from psychologist B.F. Skinner and some rats. This term refers to the anticipation that something might happen, and our behavior gets reinforced because of an occasional reward. As humans, when we're rewarded occasionally with something amazing, we are more than willing to put up with disappointment most of the time. Take carnival games or claw machines, for example. We know that 9 times out of 10, we're probably just going to be wasting our money and end up with no reward. But we keep playing because we're willing to put up with that disappointment for the slight chance that we could get something amazing. So throughout our lives, we have lived experiences that condition us to how amazing some things feel. We get to know the feelings that come with having sex, eating sugar, seeing a really cute animal. All these things release dopamine, and once we experience it, we constantly strive to create those feelings again. Like when someone even mentions something like seeing a cute puppy, our dopamine goes up in anticipation of the pleasure we remember experiencing last time we saw a cute puppy. And we start to crave those feelings all over again. The anticipation of the pleasure is oftentimes better than the pleasure itself, but the anticipation is all that clickbait needs to get us trapped. The most addictive part about this is that clickbait reduces our reward frequency, which causes our dopamine to go through the roof. This is the same reason we keep going back to toxic people who consistently disappoint us. We tell ourselves that maybe this time, the facade of perfection will actually be true and we'll be pleasantly surprised. Strangely enough, when promises are violated, this leads to more incentive. So if we knew that every time we clicked on clickbait, we got exactly what was promised in the title, it just wouldn't be so enticing. But the wonder of, did they really almost die? I'd better watch this just to check. It's just too much for us to handle. Essentially, the maybe of it all is the most addictive thing. So even though we all know how it goes, our biological makeup will continue enticing us into clickbait for the chance that maybe this time something will actually shock us. We can work on conditioning our brain to ignore these sort of traps, but ultimately, our brain is just trying to keep us alive. Honestly, I think our love for clickbait is kind of a beautiful metaphor for the human spirit. We get hurt and beaten down over and over again, and yet we keep on persisting day to day for the possibility that something amazing could come our way. That's all for today, but be sure to come back next week where I'll be teaching you 5 ways to make absolutely anyone fall in love with you instantly. Thank you for being here. Don't forget to like and subscribe and change the sheets on your bed, and I will see you when I see you.